The Resistance came first. Coup Inquisitor promo, which they don't have a year for, and then they've got this game called Triumvirate, and then they've got Resistance, and Triumvirate and the Resistance were both from 2009.
Okay.
And then you've got Snowdonia, the Resistance Avalon 2012.
That's interesting that they came out in the same year.
What? Coup? Yeah. The Resistance Avalon, and that came out in 2012. So that variation didn't come about until 3 years later.
Yeah, okay. Which was the same year that Coup came out.
Yeah. And then in 2013 there was a Melon Assassin promo for the Resistance, which I guess was an adaptation that included the assassin from Coup, maybe? I don't know.
Well, you kind of have that adaptation in the latest version of the Resistance Avalon that I've played, but it was an optional add-on. I think it's really interesting because both Coup and the Resistance Avalon came out in the same years, but it's really clear that the company was looking at adding more features and adding more strategy into who you choose and how you play what you're choosing as well.
Well, it gives you, the Resistance has anywhere between 5 and 10 players, so they have anywhere between 5 and 10 characters, but there seems to be, no real significance to which character you get. The only thing that matters is whether they're a spy or a Resistance member. Coup and Avalon are both evidence of them trying to capitalize on, more individual play for each player.
Also, I found that when we were playing the Resistance, we kind of got to a point in the game, because we played, 4 or 5 rounds?
4.
But we got to a point in the game where we were using the same tactics, and because the players or the roles weren't changing greatly from game to game, it was the same sort of accusation. So someone pointed out that I'm always accusing Daniel because I know Daniel the best, and therefore you all would trust me when I say here's the spy, because I know who he is as a person, and therefore I can assume that he is the spy because I'm not the spy, and therefore he is. And things like that. But the thing is, because it was only spy or not spy, you kind of had if I'm not it, and I'm going to tell everyone I'm not it because that's the way you play, therefore I need to accuse someone, and it can't be me, and I need to make a convincing argument, and then that's the end of it. There's nothing else. Whereas when you play the Resistance Avalon, you kind of have more variations and more variables, so you're looking out for other things. So you have Merlin in it, for example, who knows who all the spies are, and they're voting based on their knowledge because they're good, and they can vote based on their knowledge of who's who. And you have the spies looking out for who Merlin is because they want to kill him. And you also have the good guys looking out for who Merlin is so that they can follow his lead. And it adds a different element into the game.
So if the spies are looking for who Merlin is, and they kill him, is that an elimination element to the player?
Well, the way it works is you need 3 rounds 1 to win the game, right?
Yeah.
But if the good guys win, then the bad guys have the chance to vote who Merlin is. And if they get it right, then Merlin dies and the good guys therefore lose. So it's an extra stakes, and it makes it still a bit harder for the good guys to win. But I think the Resistance 2009, it was already geared more towards the spies as it was.
There's a big pause in between Resistance coming out and anything else coming out. What were they doing for 3 years?
Playing the game.
We got tired of it so quickly.
But is that because we'd spent the previous 2 hours playing Coup?
Maybe.
So I was reading this article, which kind of suggested that the gameplay was geared more towards the spies because they each knew who each other were. So, when we had 5 people in our game?
2 spies, 3 Resistance fighters.
So you had 2 spies who knew who each other were, and 3 people who were completely in the dark and had no knowledge at all, right? You have these 2 people who can influence the game in any way they want, just like we as good guys could have, if assuming we were all good. I feel like I'm playing the game again by just assuming we're good. But so you have like these two people who have all the knowledge and power in their minds, and assuming they're good actors, they can then fix the game and assume that they will win like the whole thing very quickly, very easily.
There was a round where everybody pinned it on me, and I was good.
I think I was good that round as well, but like they didn't trust me either.
Yeah, but you were like deflecting onto me, and I was like, "It's not me. I was good."
I think Angus started that though, and he was bad, wasn't he, that round?
Probably. He was back quite a few times, and he was so quiet throughout most of the play. Like he would just slowly just fuck shit up.
Anyway, this article I was talking about before, it had a suggested alteration of the rules, which would make it more difficult for the spies to win, where you had a game master who knew who everyone was but wasn't a player, but they were just monitoring like who was playing and how they were playing and making sure they were following their own rules. But no one knew who anyone was. You knew what you were, but that was it, including spies. And that was their this writer's way of trying to balance out the rules, which is really interesting. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it would be a fun game to play if you did that. But the way, like the fact that he proposed that this is a way to change the statistical chance of winning for the spies was interesting in itself.
Look at when he wrote this. He wrote this in 2014. Although I don't remember specifically predicting this prior to beginning the analysis below, I got as far as 40% of the time the resistance wins just based on the first round before I started to write this post. And they're right. Because the first round, everybody's just throws it away. Like, there's a point, I think I asked about it in one of our games where I was like, so does everybody just always approve the first one? Like, you kind of need a wild card.
It's not just that, though. It's not just the fact that the first round is always approved. It's also the fact that the first round, if you are bad and you say no, then there's a lesser chance of either of the people, like it's a small round, the first round, either of those people being chosen again. So, say it's the first round, you and I are playing, one of us is bad and we say no, right? We've got our 5 players. Neither of us are going to get chosen ever again. And if we are, then, you know, it's going to be a bit dodgy. If you and I are both the bad players and we both say no, we're screwed. They'll never choose us again. They'll win the next 3 rounds.
So is it better with more players?
I think more players makes it more difficult to tell who's who. I mean, obviously your first round isn't 2 players, so you don't have as much of that problem where one person says this round's going to fail and then both players get ignored for the rest of the round.
I've got a review for you that sort of does a pros and cons approach to it. And it is good because whoever wrote it broke it down at the bottom and said the good and the bad. And the bad's like, because the game plays through social interaction and deduction rather than a tactile board, it needs a group of players who can engross themselves in their respective roles and participate. And so with Coup, you get engrossed in trying to bluff your way into being one of those 5 characters.
Yeah. But it's like, I think that's also what the Resistance Avalon 2012 also has.
Yeah, but this one doesn't have it. It's stripped back.
It's a binary of you are good or you are bad, and that's it.
Yeah, which is like, it's kind of a waste because they have such beautiful art and like they're very vivid characters.
The other flip side of that as well is that you never want to appear as bad. Like, you could appear as other characters in Coup, and it didn't matter because all of them had their pros and cons, yeah?
Yeah.
But in the Resistance 2009, if you appeared as bad, you were just never going to get chosen and you screwed yourself over. So what's the point in appearing as bad? What's the point in bluffing yourself as a bad person when you could just bluff yourself as a good person and someone will just call you out anyway because that's the nature of the game?
Coup Reformation is an expansion on like the regular Coup that we play, and I think some of those characters get cast into the Resistance and some get cast into the Republic or whatever it is. But it doesn't seem to affect gameplay very much. Each player must declare himself either a loyalist or a resistant and can target only members of the other faction. Conversion is
Okay.
possible for yourself or for another player by paying a charitable donation to the treasury. So you give up a coin's chance of being able to coup someone else or assassinate someone else by changing sides.
I don't know if I like the concept of being able to change sides. Like, it makes sense. It doesn't force you to have make a choice which will affect your entire game. It just forces you to make a choice of, oh, I feel like not attacking you, so I'm going to make an alliance with you, and therefore I'm going to change my mind later.
That's the kind of rule that players who become familiar with the mechanics will decide, like, oh, we're not going to do that rule. That's like a variation that people would employ on their own. That's like, an unofficial rule series set up by someone else. I reckon it's totally possible that people are saying, if you declare a faction, then you're stuck with that faction.
Yeah, like a non-canon set of rules.
It's the only way to handle a larger number of players, which is how the Reformation expansion is supposed to work anyway. Okay, his last point is the game gets repetitive, and after a few games, some people might get tired of it. Whereas we didn't get tired of Coup, especially when we had Coup Rebellion, because you could customize the deck out of 25 different characters instead of being stuck with the same 5.
We got through quite a number of rounds of Coup before we got over that. Like, we didn't actually get over that. We're just like, we should probably do this other way.
Yeah, no, you can keep playing Coup until you get introduced to the Rebellion, and then you're like, nah, I'm not going back.
Well, I think also the part of the reason why Coup was so enjoyable is because we had a good set of people who were willing to immerse themselves into the game. I'm going to play, but I'm going to bloody win because I'm better than you all. And you'd immerse yourself into that sort of mindset. And you'd also then realize, we very quickly realized that you were very strong at the game because you'd actually played before. And so quickly, Daniel and Zoltan realized that you were a threat and tried to go after you. Problem is, Zoltan was also a threat because he's a bloody psychoanalyzer of other people, and that's just what he does. And so you quickly realized that one as well, whereas I'm just like, I knew that Zoltan would be a problem because I know him, but I also knew that if I attacked him, he would then go after me. So it's a balance of personality, and it's also about learning of other people's approach and tactics and attempts to win.
I guess it's good because it kind of informs you, it's a good social informer. It makes you want to get to know your friends better.
The first time I played the Resistance Avalon, it was interesting because my friend Bernice was playing, and her tactic was not, I want to win or I want to lose. It's, if you take me on your mission, then I will approve this mission. If you don't take me on this mission, I won't approve this mission. So it was really tricky because you had no idea if she was good or bad. But so for some rounds in particular, if you wanted that mission group to go on, you had to take her, which is an interesting tactic in itself. But then furthermore, there's a couple of people I'm really close to within my church group, and I can read better than others. And so we were having subtle conversations the entire night, trying to figure out who each other were. And it was just, in hindsight, I'm just like, what if someone was watching? If someone was watching us having those subtle conversations, they would have learned a heck of a lot about the dynamics of our friendship beyond just the game. And I thought that was a really interesting, sub product of the game itself, because your friendships and your relationships and how you interact with one another becomes a part of the way that you interact with the game, and you conduct yourself within the game and how you try and approach it as well.
When you start playing the game, strategies will be fairly basic. If you're a spy, fail every mission. After a few games, however, people will expect that, and so you'll start passing some missions to throw people off your trail. But then people will realize that spies are passing missions, so they'll all start suspecting people.
But it's interesting because I'm on this other site and looking at strategy for the Resistance, and this guy has said he disagrees. He thinks that in the early part of the game, only the spies have a good reason to vote for a team because they're the ones with the perfect information, whereas everyone else is got nothing. Why would they accept it? Which, I mean, I don't agree with, but it's just interesting that people have different opinions on that as well.
I think, though, I guess if you were a spy and you had no strategy, then the first thing you would do is fail every mission that you were taken on. But the thing is, if you did that in a small group of people, you would easily be isolated and identified as a spy, because obviously resistance.
That's why everyone passes the first bloody round.